Y'all ain't getting nothing for free. What's up, everyone? It's your boy, The Business, coming back at you live for episode 15 of The Business. Let's be real. Tonight, I'm going to dig into a little bit of part 2 of the life of the business. It's kind of an extended part, so I will break it down into 2 different parts. It's going to be 2A and 2B, and I'll kind of roll through from episode 1, like I'll do from the end of episode 1 until I was almost like 15 years old. If you didn't catch episode 1 was on our part 1 was on episode 8 of the business. Let's be real was part 1 of the life of the business. I kind of talked about growing up in Lorain and my love and respect for the city of Lorain, and then talked about how, at the age of 7, we made the move to Florida, and then at Julio, thank you, man. Made the move from Florida to a different way of life, and just kind of, some of the things I did and some of the sports I lived in and played at that time, and some of the people I met throughout the way. That was all in part 1 on episode 8. And this part is going to talk about the transition back from Florida at the time. And I'll kind of dig into, again, the reason why we made the move from Florida back to Lorain, and, kind of talk about those years that followed. So with that being said, the business, let's be real. Episode 15 begins now. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the business. Let's be real. Episode 15, where I'm going to start to dig in, like I said, into part 2 of the life of the business. If there's any questions that pop up or anybody wants to come into the chat and kind of, just give a shout out, I'll pop those up throughout the time. Like I said, I'm going to dig into somewhat of the life of the business. This is going to be the second decade. It is kind of an extended part, so I will break it down into 2 different parts of 2A and 2B. This is going to be 2A of the second part of the life of the business. I talked about somewhat at the end of part 1 in episode 8 about how, one of my uncles, one of my father's siblings had passed. And my father felt that, at that time he needed to make a move back to Ohio to be with his mother at the time, be with his family, kind of help support them at a time that, they were grieving. And, so we understood that, and we were willing to make that move back with him. We didn't fight it. And so we made the move then at that point to, move back to Lorain, Ohio. And we were lucky enough that, my parents were still owned the same house that we lived in when we were growing up. They were renting it out while we were gone. And so when we came back home, we then moved right back into the south side of Lorain, back on East 40th Street, and came, and fell right back into the scene of things. At that time, I want to say I was 10, almost 11. My sister was older. She was probably, I want to say, a sophomore, getting ready to be a junior. Which was a tougher move for her academically and athletically, because of the fact that she had kind of set herself up for what she was trying to do in school and how she was going to try to approach college at that time. And, things changed then when we moved back to Ohio, because it wasn't the same scenario for her as far as academics and sports went. But for me, it wasn't too much of a change. As far as what I was doing, I was still playing, a lot of rec ball sports, Little League football, Pee Wee football, Little League baseball. So, to transition back into it, The only thing that really hurt me was the fact that I was, doing karate at the time. And when I came back to Ohio, um, I was kind of stuck into a situation where I felt like nobody could kind of live up to what Sensei Thorner was at that time. And it was just out of respect for him and for what he had taught me. And so I didn't get back into karate at that time, but I'll talk about some of the sports that I did end up doing and then where I took it from there. When I first came back, I did go back to school at St. John's in Lorain for my 5th and 6th grade year. And I was lucky enough, when I came back to St. John's, I was at a time where I could start to do other things other than just sports. I had come back to St. John's and I was an altar boy at the church at St. John's, and I was a patrol guard at St. John's, and was pretty, just a regular kid. Played baseball during that time, but enjoyed school, enjoyed being back in the city of Lorain, enjoyed that camaraderie of being a part of a neighborhood, being a part of a city that really appreciated each other and loved each other at that time. And it was at that time starting to go through somewhat of the hard times. It was I want to say in the late 80s. At that point, it was probably 87, 88. So it was starting to feel the pressure of the economic turn that had taken control of Lorain. And so yeah, it was like I said, it was the start of a difficult time, but Lorain still was a great city to live in, and was still, and still is today. I'm not saying that it's not, but it was, still so fun at that point when I was a young kid. And, played baseball throughout that time and really enjoyed it. Was able to get back into wrestling. I hadn't wrestled in a couple years because of the fact that I was in Florida at the time. And Florida was, they weren't very known for wrestling at that point. So I didn't really have any good classes that I could go to or clinics and, joining up with anybody. So when I first got back home, my father was able to find a clinic that was going on, and it was like a class that was going on at Elyria Catholic. And it just so happened that they had this, national championship wrestler who had been taught from, so many different coaches and was, bred into the Olympics and coached on many Olympics teams throughout both men and women. And he was coaching some young kids, trying to help them out because he had young kids at the time. And it was funny because of the fact that I then went and I had a chance to learn from Tadaki Hata, Coach Tadaki Hata, and his son, Robert and Ben were there, and they were young kids at the time, super cool kids to be around, very nice family, always treated everybody that was around them with respect. And that's why they got it the same in return. So many people respected them in return because of the respect that they gave out. And it was super cool learning from somebody like that. I mean, he had already written a book at that point. And I remember, I still have that book to this day in the bookshelf here. And, it's super cool. And he's written more books since then. And I don't have all the books that he has, but, Tadaki Hata was a big part of me getting back into wrestling and enjoying that point of my life, competing again for an individual sport the way I like to compete, and I think that, like I said before, that was why I took to karate so much, because of the fact that it was an individual combat sport, and I truly enjoyed singles competition. I enjoyed team competition because I loved watching and being a part of the camaraderie with the team, and even in individuals competition, you were a part of a team, but you were competing by yourself. So that part I truly enjoyed, and was lucky enough, like I said, to get with Tadaki Hata at that time and kind of like jump back into the wrestling game and learn from a great mind, and get plunge right back into tournaments, and starting to travel again and going to tournaments and wrestling and competing, and truly enjoyed it. Also at that time, and I started to touch on it just a little bit earlier, I got back into Little League Baseball and was playing Little League Baseball with AMVETS Post 57 at that time. And it was funny because now at this time, I had started to really learn the game of baseball. When I made my run in Florida, I had a couple good coaches and Coach West and Coach Ward to really teach me the game of baseball. So now coming back, and it was funny at the fact that I was then taken on again by Coach Rigo Revron. And now he saw a different ball player. He saw somebody that knew the game, that could play the game, was, one of his top competitors for that team. And that team had a lot of cool characters on it, that I was able to meet too at that time. And it was the start of like I said, a different era. I was lucky enough to, meet Hector Aponte and Gary Bennett and Adam Brzezowski and Mike Dusky and like all these guys, Anthony Rivera, so many cool people that I got to meet too at this time running with this team. And I'm sorry if I don't name everybody throughout the process. It's no disrespect to you. I just can't name them all. So being able to play again for Rigo was super cool. He, I think, then saw that I was a player now, like I said, and could play the game. And we had a fun time. We weren't at that time, so lucky that we weren't able to get past the big teams, because there was, at that time, there was a souped-up team that went on to run both that 11 and 12-year-old year, and I tell you what, if they wouldn't have broken that team up to make an all-star team, that team probably could have rolled for a while, and that was that Angelo's Pizza team, because that team was loaded, and and that was really like one of the few teams that could beat us at that time. But yeah, we had a fun time, man, and that was also where I had a chance to meet Mario Rivas, and Mario Rivas, I'll talk more about, because Mario Rivas and I were then able to join an all-star team, but I'll talk about that here coming up. And yeah, we played in the future, and it was super fun. So yeah, I did that. I do want to pop up a little shout out, Danny River, DJ. What's up, man? Southside, what's up, bro? always Southside. Represent, dude. I got to get you on soon, man. I want to talk about your new barbershop, man, and get it on here so we can chat about that and all the things you've gone through to come to that point, man. Super proud of you, dude. Honored that you jump on and always represent for me, bro. I appreciate you. So yeah, at that time I was playing baseball for AMVETS. I was also playing then CYO football for St. Jude's, played a lot of different positions for them, played quarterback, played running back, and I had done that for the Gators. So it was not too much of a change for me, to jump right into that role of quarterback and running back for another team, and enjoyed that. Like, it was so fun of a time, met some great people, met the Kazaminskis, met a bunch of great people with St. Jude's that were tied into the Illyria Catholic family. We didn't really have a team in South Lorain at that time, so I had to go out of the city, but it didn't go too far. I just went to Illyria, and wasn't far from where I lived, to play football as well. Okay. So also at this time, while at St. John's going to school there, not only was I, being an altar boy and patrolling, I was also, I also played for their basketball team and had never really played basketball before. At that time, I was a little bit bigger than most of the guys I was growing up with. As far as even tallness, I mean, I'm not tall to this day, but I had started to grow up a little bit before these guys did, and had to play like power forward and was okay. I was decent at that time. I was young. I had never played before, and had a fun time with those guys. Because that was a cool little team. We had, Franco Diaz was super nasty. He had little handles at that time. I played with Marco Jacinto, the Demasevich boy, Todd. He was good. He came up and played with us because he could play. And, it was such a great time at that time too, because we went to school with a lot of cool people. And Michelle, oh my God, I remember the basketball team. Fun times. All right. That was cool because I remember you being there at St. John's with us and you saw those guys all play together, and that was like the team, and we had a fun time. I mean, once again, we played and we won a lot of games, but we would run up against the St. Peter's team who had Ronnie Mantini on it. And Ronnie Mantini happened to be on the Angelo's Pizza team as well, who was just a man amongst boys. The kid was 11, 12 years old and was already 6 foot plus and was just able to catch the ball and shoot it over us and just make everybody look foolish. And, he was just super big at that time. And it was funny because, like I said, he was a man amongst boys and he played as such. He used his size to his advantage. So it was really funny to do that. But yeah, like I said, we had fun, played, a lot of good teams at that time because that was the CYO league as well as, the Catholic schools. And, so we played against each other and had a good time. And it was like I said, it was fun and, but we didn't go anywhere with it, because of the fact that it was that city league. And then I'm going to kind of now touch on the fact that then after St. John's, I went to Lorain Catholic. Where I was there very shortly at Lorain Catholic after leaving St. John's. That was the start of my middle school, was being at Lorain Catholic. And I don't know if some of you guys probably don't know that from South Lorain, the fact that I did go to Lorain Catholic at first. I didn't go to Whittier immediately after, in junior high. But like I said, my reign at Lorain Catholic was pretty short. I did go there. I played football. I played football for, I played so many positions for them when I was there. I played both sides of the ball. I was the quarterback and also one of the linebackers there. Played both sides of the ball, played every game up until I got injured late in the season. And then, stopped playing for them. While at Lorain Catholic, I want to say the kind of temperament of myself started to change. And, and I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that I wasn't around, some people that were helping discipline me other than my parents. My parents were always there for me and always kind of trying to push me along the way. But I didn't have discipline coming from other sources the way I did even when I was in Florida. Like I said, I always had a lot of energy when I was young, and I didn't like having sports was my way of kind of releasing that energy. And then, so when I stopped playing football at Lorain Catholic, I had nothing to kind of put my energy on. So I started to become rebellious and started to fight a lot, and didn't care who I fought. I fought, anybody who said anything wrong to me. I fought my friends. I fought everyone, my family, and not like my close family at that time, like as far as like my immediate family, but would fight with my cousins, would fight, you know what I'm saying? Some of my best friends, and just didn't know how to, kind of control that anger. And it led me into a lot of trouble at Lorain Catholic. I had gotten suspended. I had to do in-school suspensions, where I would sit in the principal's office all day long, and we would have to go out and clean the yard and do stuff, and then come back in and do my studies, and that kind of led me to, eventually having to be having my parents asked to have me removed kind of from Lorain Catholic because of the fact that I was starting to become too much of a problem. And I understood that, and they understood that too, because they couldn't control it at that time. They were trying as they might, but it just wasn't working. And that's at that point is when I made the move to Whittier. And when I first came to Whittier, I was just a regular person. Luckily enough for me, it was the start of wrestling season at this point. So I was able to join the wrestling team kind of immediately and jump in and start to get out. Like I said before, I needed to get out some energy and be able to, focus on something other than fighting all the time. And, at that time, I still, was rough around the edges. I didn't take too kindly to people. I did have to get into a couple of scraps to prove myself when I first got there. But, then wrestling started to settle in, and people started to know me for the sport of wrestling and being one of the top wrestlers, even as a 7th grader there, because I was on a team that had a lot of great 8th graders there. I was with Rico Kambaya and Jimmy James and Ishmael Williams. And, these guys were great wrestlers at this time already. So it wasn't like I was coming in thinking I was going to be, the superstar of the team. I didn't have to carry that load. Those guys did because they were the 8th graders, and then I was able to come in and just fill a spot and fill a position and just be me. And I enjoyed and appreciated that within the team, that I didn't have to kind of, be the man right away coming in at 7th grade. So I went on in 7th grade then and wrestled in a lot of tournaments, won a lot, lost a few. We ended up then doing our usual. the top of the wrestling as far as Whittier went was the county championships. We would go to a lot of different tournaments throughout the season, but the pinnacle of the year was wrestling in the county championships. And so then we made it onto the county tournament for our 7th grade year. And, I had won. Sorry about this. I had won all the way through the tournament, and then matched up against a guy who was great in the championship round. And he really took it to me early in the match, was way faster than I was, and smooth, and had scored a lot of points on me. And I just really had no answer for him in the first 2 periods of the match. And then in the 3rd period of the match, I was on top of him. He started down, I started on top, and was able to lock up a cradle on him right away, flip him to his back, stuck the knee in his ribs, and flattened him out like a pancake. And for some reason, the referee wouldn't call the pin. And at that point, in seventh grade, we only had a minute and a half periods. It was just a minute 30. It wasn't a full 2 minutes like there is in high school. So for pretty much a minute and probably 20 of the period, he sat flat. Like I said, knee in the side, dead for the pin. I held him in that position the entire period, blocked it, never got the pin call. I didn't know what was going on. I couldn't understand. I didn't want to adjust my hold because I didn't want to lose that hold. I knew that I had him flat, but the referee just wouldn't call it. Ended up losing that match by points because of the fact that, like I said, I was down quite a bit leading up to that. And then, so that was like I said, the end of that match. After that match, that referee then was confronted about the fact of the call by all the referees at the tournament. And at that point, that referee never refereed another match because of that call, because of the fact that he actually was taking out a personal grudge on me that he had with an uncle of mine. My Uncle Eric and him wrestled when they were back in school, and my Uncle Eric used to take it to this kid bad. And we never knew that, something like that would come back to haunt us, but it ended up coming back to haunt us. And so I ended up losing in the county championships my seventh grade year, and was a little upset, but it made me hungrier, I think, to come out the next year and try to reclaim the title that I should have won. Let's see. Sorry. Talked about the move. Okay. Also, then at this time is when in seventh grade, I tried out for the AMVETS years were behind me then at this time, and I tried out for a travel baseball team out of Lorain called Tippy, and Bill Tippy had put together a team of some players from all around, the city and the outskirts of the city, and had done this for years prior and was putting together, the next 13-year-old team. So, I went out and tried out for the team. Had just a regular tryout. It wasn't like I shocked the world. I wasn't like a huge hitter at this time. I was fast. I was able to cover ground in the outfield. I had a decent arm and could hit the ball, good, but I wasn't like a power hitter. I wasn't a home run hitter. And, I never claimed to be such. And so I ended up making the Tippy team. Because of the fact that I was fast and had a good glove and could roll and kind of be that role player with, the team, the rest of the team that he was putting together. That team was then made up of some players from, like I said, all around the city and the outskirts. We had guys from the west side, guys from the east side, some fellas from Amherst, and a couple of guys from south side of Lorain. And it was me and Mario Rivas, and then, we're two little Latinos matched up with the towers of giants that we were then paired with to make a team. And I've talked about this team before. I talked about them a lot in episode 1 with Justin Standen, because Justin Standen was one of those guys that played with us. And these guys were monsters at this time. I talked about Ron Mantini, which was funny because now I had a chance to play with Ronnie. And Ronnie at this time was almost 6'6" at the time. He was 12, about to be 13 years old, and was like already 6'6". Skinny character though, like, long and skinny kid. He wasn't 6'6", 250 pounds. He was probably 6'6", probably maybe 160. He was long, lean, but when he stepped off the mound pitching at you, it looked like he was stepping on top of you, kind of thing. And had Jose Lynn and John Ramsey and Melvin McCall, and all these guys were over 6 foot already. And, and they weren't little boys. They were all pushing 180, 200 pounds. Had Michael Cobb, who had a glove that was out of this world. Had so many good players. Like I said, Justin Stanton, Matt Hamoya. These guys were all on this team, and they were all like way bigger characters than like what Mario and I were. And it was cool to play with these guys because we had like a super cool season. Traveled all around the state of Ohio, played in a bunch of different tournaments, and had such a fun time doing so. Yeah, DJ. I'm talking about Mario Rivas. Yeah, Pito. That's Pito, Papa. Yeah. That's what I'm talking about, man. Yeah, he was a hell of a baseball player, dude. And so yeah, he ended up playing with us too. And Mario actually, I remember, had a freak accident. Had got a hit, slid into third base and shattered his ankle, man, and was in a boot after that. And I don't think he played with us then the rest of the season. But yeah, had a really good team. That team was super tough. We ended up making it to the state championships at that time in East Liverpool, and played in the States, and played hard. Had a really, good showing out there. Didn't win that tournament. We ended up, I want to say, taking second in that tournament. If somebody's out there that's watching that knows the exact, please, talk about it and put it in there so I remember what it was that we placed in that tournament. But yeah, enjoyed that team, and then was lucky enough to have a couple of us then at that point be asked to join the 14-year-old team that was going to the World Series, and they were going to the World Series in St. Joseph, Missouri. And so we were, of course, honored and excited to go with them to St. Joseph and get to see what that experience was like. I had talked about it before, and like I said, when Justin was on, we talked about the bus rides and just, how funny it was, and, some of the stupid things we did just on that bus ride, because it was a long ride. We weren't taking, a quick hop in somewhere within the state, like a 3 or 4 hour ride. We were in the bus for, 12, 15, 18 hours. And it was, it was quite a ride. So we had to do some things to kind of entertain us. So we then show up there, and they separate us and put us into houses out there. And we talked about that out there, and playing ball out there, and it was super cool because we were out, like I said, in the country where baseball was king. They enjoyed that time of the season. It's a lot like when the Little League World Series goes on and Williamsport blows up for that time of the year. It was kind of the same thing for them. When the World Series comes to their towns for the 13 and 14-year-olds, that whole city comes together and they really put it on for those tournaments coming in, because they want to, show the world and display what it is that they can do for people coming in. So yeah, I had a great time. Yeah, I'll pop that up. Rest in peace to Mario, Pito, endless memories, man, for sure. And I'll talk about that, in my kind of probably my 4th episode, from my years to 30 to 40 kind of thing, and just chat more about that. But yeah, and totally went out there, played some ball. We didn't do that well out there. Some of those teams had been together for a long time, had done the travel thing for many a years, and and we were one of those teams that we got a late start because nobody had done travel ball up until we were 13 years old. There wasn't 11 and 12-year-olds that were doing travel ball at that time. So yeah, we went out there. We won a couple games, but we lost a couple games too, and we were out of the tournament pretty quick. But yeah, had a good time. Appreciated that time with them. Loved the camaraderie, like I've said before, with baseball and what it is that it's like to have a team and kind of be with each other and enjoy each other, because that's fun, man. I mean, for real, people don't get those times sometimes, and they don't get to enjoy them, and we truly did at that point. And I hope that the kids that are playing today, they're enjoying it in the same. So yeah, then after that point, started the 8th grade year of me being at Whittier, and then it was kind of a different scenario of us at Whittier. We, were then kind of the big kids on the block. Being in 8th grade, you kind of enjoyed that, and and we thrived off of it. But it was a really fun time. I remember going to school at Whittier, and just it was a different era. Had really fun people around, and enjoyed it truly. Debbie, I'll pop that up. Baseball can be a brotherhood. That's the truth, man. I mean, it's a great game, and like I said, the camaraderie of baseball, the brotherhood is it's unmatched to some of the other games. But yeah, so enjoyed, like I said, it was enjoying Whittier, enjoying 8th grade, had fun being around some of the people that we were around then at that point, because like I said, it was different, that we were kind of the big kids on the block. Then wrestling season started, and we had a whole different squad. A lot of those, like I said, the other guys had left, and then we had our guys who rolled, and I had some different players. Jose Torres was on that team with me, and William Nixon, and we Jason Oriano was on that team. Carlos Gonzalez was on that team. Aaron was on that team, and that team actually was a really good team. We had some guys that people didn't know so much about, but they were working out with us in the practices just as hard as we were, if not harder, because they were trying to prove themselves and really show that it wasn't just about the big names at Whittier. They were doing their thing too. And we went through and wrestled, I remember early in the season, I want to say we wrestled in Medina, and I ended up losing in Medina in an early match, a quarterfinal match. I don't know how I was matched up against this guy in the quarterfinal match, but I ended up getting matched up against Scott Overholt early in the tournament. And Scott Overholt, if you don't know who Scott Overholt is a buzzsaw, and literally just chopped right through me. I remember I shot him for a takedown, went to pick him up, and he just cross-faced me right to my back, stuck me, held me down, and pinned me. And I was like, got up like, what just happened? And was kind of shocked, and he got up, stood there, shook my hand, and walked away, and I remember that. And that was the only loss I had my whole 8th grade year. And always wished that I could have got another shot at Scott Overholt, and I never did, because I would have liked to have another chance. I think he caught me by surprise, and I paid the price for it. So, but yeah, and went on with Whittier. Had a couple good tournaments that we all wrestled in. We won most of the tournaments that we were in, and leading up to, once again, the county championship. And in the county championship. A lot of my lighter weights had won, and it was coming up to the upper classes, and I was coming up next, and I was trying to get ready, and I was matched up against another kid who was undefeated at the time. I had one loss, and I was the number 2 seed, and he was the number 1 seed because he was undefeated. And I remember his name because of the fact that he and I met like earlier in the day. And his name was Eric Anderson. And I don't know if Eric Anderson is around anywhere, but Eric Anderson was out of Vermilion. And Eric Anderson was tough. You know, he was long. He was strong, super fast, could move. And I ended up matching up against Eric Anderson in the championship of the county championships. And Eric Anderson did the same thing that happened to me pretty much in my 7th grade year. You know, Eric Anderson jumped ahead of me, and he used that speed and his endurance against me, and was able to take me down and keep kicking me out and taking me down and kicking me out and taking me down and kicking me out. And I mean, before I knew it, you know, I was losing, I want to say 18-5 going into the 3rd period. And which many of you who don't know the game of wrestling, that's, you know, it's 13 points, and to lose a match by technical fall is to lose by 15. So, you know, I was on the verge of pretty much losing the match. That's how beat at that time. But I started to see that he was starting to wear down. Like, my strength was starting to wear him down. Because he wasn't able to turn me as much as he was hoping. Like I said, he had to keep taking me down and kicking me out. Like I said, he had turned me early in the match off of speed, but later in the match wasn't able to do so. And then we were coming into the 3rd period, and then in the 3rd period, I could tell, like I said, he was getting tired. He was wearing down, and 3rd period started. He came in on me. I was able to push him away, and I had a headlock throw that I had learned from judo, you know, from Shorin-ryu karate, that I knew I could throw pretty much on anyone. So what I would do was I would push you out when you shot in on me. I'd push you away, let you come back, and when you came back, I would lock my hands behind your arm and behind your head and pull you into me, and then twist you and drop you to the ground. And so when I did this, I locked it up on Eric, hit him to the ground. As soon as he hit the ground, I heard the air come out of him. Boom. I hit him to the ground. Whew, oh, all the air comes out. As all the air comes out of him, he looks at me on his back, and I take his arm and I put it across his face, and I just put my chin to his elbow, and I squeeze. And I just squeezed as hard as I could, as tight as I could, like as if there was no tomorrow. I squeezed until, you know, I felt him start to push, and then all of a sudden he let out one big gasp of air, and he was done. And his back went flat. The referee called for the pin. I jumped up. I had won the match, and was super excited to be a county champion at that time. And it was, I tell you what, it sounds minimal saying it's only a county championship, but to those in South Lorain and those guys that were, you know, anywhere in Lorain and anywhere in Lorain County, to be a county champion in Lorain County in wrestling was a pretty big deal to us at that time. So we ended up going on to win that county championship as a team. We had 7 champions at that time. I can't name them all. But at that time, it was the most county champions Whittier had ever had. I don't know if they've ever, you know, superseded that accomplishment, because that was pretty high up there. You know, it was like 7 of 12 weight classes, I want to say, at that time, that we won, and that's pretty big, you know, and we were proud of that because of the fact that we were not a team that people were thinking was going to be that good. You know, we didn't have, like I said before, the Jimmy Jameses and the Ricos and the Ishmaels of the world. But these guys were hard workers, and they came out and did their job, So shout out to that Whittier, team that went on to win the county championship. And like I said, had 7 champions, man, which is huge. I then want to touch about the 14-year-old year of Tippy and some of the things that we did then at that year. We played all around, again, the state of Ohio. Went all kinds of different places. Enjoyed what we were able to do. Always ended up matching up against this team from Manchester called the Manchester A's. And I don't know if anybody out there remembers the Manchester A's or had, their son play against, teams from Manchester that are the Manchester A's. But it was always a tough team. Super hard for us. It was our arch nemesis. We always battled against them, and a lot of times they would beat us, and sometimes we would beat them. And we played in a qualifier for the World Series against them. They ended up beating us in the championship, and that led to them going to one World Series and us going to another. And we were lucky enough to go to the World Series in Casper, Wyoming. And that was a trip in itself. What made that trip a little bit different was the fact that we were going out there as a whole different team. Like I said before, we were paired up. Like I told you, I was paired up with some monsters, and not only had not too many people seen a group of kids like this. When we showed up at the World Series, those people hadn't seen a team like this either. And I remember, and I know that these guys remember, we went to the opening ceremonies, to the opening dinner, and got to see a lot of the teams. And that night, getting back to the houses that we were all separated at, on the news, they talked about the World Series coming to town. And in that little, bit about the World Series coming to town, they mentioned the fact that the team that was projected to win it all was a team from Lorain, Ohio. And we all looked around at each other like, whoa, they just put a bullseye on our back. And we were super excited at the fact that, we were being called out on national TV, or on local TV, I guess, at that point. I wouldn't say national. But we also knew that they were putting a target on our back by doing so. So that made so many people from the city now want to come out and watch us, and both cheer for us because they wanted to see this team from Lorain, Ohio, and both cheer against us because they wanted to see this team that was a juggernaut, that was like the Goliath, kind of get taken down. And we played a tough tournament, made it to the semifinal game, and I remember we ran up against a team from Topeka, Kansas, and that team from Topeka, Kansas was tough. They had some bombers on their team. They weren't a big team. But they were very fundamental in the game of baseball. They didn't make any errors. They didn't make very many mistakes. Everybody in their whole lineup came up and they swung the bat well. And it wasn't about hitting bombs. It was about kind of playing small ball. And they used that to their advantage. And they were able to, come and attack us. And I remember playing that team. And they ended up beating us 18-17 in the semifinals of the World Series. And I ended up making the last out, which was tough for me because of the fact that I was actually on first base. I was on base at the time. Michael Cobb came up. Michael Cobb hit a shot to the left center field fence. And at this point, we were down 18. I want to say 18-16. There was a runner on third, and I was on first. The guy on third scores on the shot. I come around second, hit third, and on the way around third, I trip and fall. And when I trip and fall, I get up and I start to go back to third base. And at the time, I think that I still believe that was the right thing for me to do. And at that time, Bill Tippy was coaching us at that time, which was a change for us because of the fact that my dad was really our coach for both our 13 and 14-year-old year. So he was always on third base for me. And when I got up from tripping and falling on third base, I tried to go back to third, and Bill Tippy told me to run because the ball still wasn't quite in yet. They were still struggling with it at the fence, trying to get it in. I pop up, never really get my footing, take off, get to home, get probably about 5 feet from home plate, see the throw come in. As I see the throw come in, the catcher catches it off to the left side. I see him, I juke to the inside, juke to the outside, come around, try to slide. He barely swipes the glove and taps me underneath my side. I touch the plate, look at the umpire, and he punches me out. Bam, you're out of there. I remember sitting at home plate, crying, upset at the fact that I had just lost the World Series for us. And really wore that hard to the point to where I never played the game of baseball again after that. I pretty much wore that, like I said, I wore that scarlet letter for a long time because of the fact that I wore that loss like it was my fault. For even to this day, I still believe that, if I would have just went back to third, we had another great hitter coming up, and we could have moved on and tied that ball game. So yeah, I like I said, we ended up going into the consolation bracket the next day. I remember going home and and my parents were both there because my dad, like I said, was one of the coaches, was our head coach at the time, but Bill Tippy had come with us. I remember going and telling my parents at that time, like, I was never going to play the game of baseball again. That's how bad I felt about that situation, and that's how tough it was for me. And I truly never did. I never picked up another bat. I never played another game. And yeah, that was the end of kind of my baseball career at that point. Didn't play in the consolation game the next day. I asked to be benched, sat out, watched the game. We ended up winning that game and took third place in the World Series that year, and was proud of that fact that we had done that. And, but like I said, that was the end of my career. Like I said, not only with Tippy, but that was my end of my career for baseball. Then at this point it was like coming up on the end of my 8th grade year. And, I'm going to kind of talk about what it was, that was going on in Lorain at this time. Lorain was hurting economically at this time, and they were trying to pass a levy, to make another tax to fund athletics in the city of Lorain. And if this levy didn't pass, they were probably going to have to cut athletics then at this point in the city of Lorain. Well, with that being said, I was kind of nervous about that because, I was playing football and wrestling still at this point. I wasn't playing baseball, but baseball was still a possibility at that point. And kind of, was worried about the fact that, like, was I going to be able to use the sports that I had been working so hard at to then further my education for college, because I knew I could use that as a ticket to help get myself into college and, move forward. So I was worried about the fact of the levy passing, didn't know where it was going to go. I remember, I want to say that they had the voting for the levy. The levy ended up not passing. So I was worried about it really at that time. And so was my family, because they knew that sports was my ticket to make it to college. Not that I was bad at academics at that time, but in order for me to get somewhere where they weren't going to have to pay all this money, sports was going to be able to filter a lot of the cost of my college education. So then at that point, we decided that the next best thing for me to do, because of the fact that wrestling was so big in my background, was to make a move to St. Edward's High School. And, those of you that go to St. Ed's, this is no disrespect to you guys in any way, because, I love you guys. But at that time, it was like almost, you want to say, going to the, like I said before, the arch nemesis of Southview, was to make a choice to go to somewhere like St. Ed's, because St. Ed's they came every year to our sectionals and wrestled in our districts. And, so we matched up against St. Ed's every step of the way through the state tournaments. And so for me to make a decision to go to St. Ed's was almost a sign of disrespect to the city of South, especially South Lorain, not Lorain as much as disrespect to South Lorain. Some of the repercussions that followed that, I'll dig into later, as far as not later on tonight, but in the next episode, and talk about, because of the fact that I ended up going on to St. Ed's, I went, and I was able to, I looked at it like I was kind of breaking down a barrier between South Lorain and St. Ed's, and what's great about that is that many families, many kids have been able to go to St. Ed's since then from the city of Lorain, and probably don't know that, I was the first kid from South Lorain to break that barrier. So yeah, I went and took their entrance exam, their academic entrance exam, to get into St. Ed's, and was able to pass that pretty easily. Like I said, academics wasn't my problem. It was just, like I said, wanting to go somewhere that could help me continue my sports to where I was able to supplement some of the cost of going to college. And so that was why I chose to go to St. Ed's at that time. And so it was like the summer leading up to that too, though. Like, not only was I then taking the entrance exam to go to St. Ed's, I then had wrestled my way into a tournament and made it to the state tournament, won the state championship for Ohio, and then was asked to be on the Ohio Team Ohio, for the national championship, and was honored to do so. Ended up making a trip out there to go and wrestle for Team Ohio in the national championship, and was lucky enough when I showed up there. It was funny because my dad wasn't able to be there, and I know I don't talk too much about my dad and all the things that this great man has done for me, but he was always able to find a way to be there. Like, he worked hard. He went to work early so that he could get out early, so that he could be there for all these events and all these sports and all these things that we did, both for me and my sister and, my uncles and all these guys that came before me. Like, he always wanted to make sure that he was there for him. And he made it work. Like, he was, if you look at any of the pictures in my bio on Facebook, if you look at the team photos, Mr. G is always back there in the background. And it's kind of funny because, you see the progression of him throughout the years, but was always coaching my teams, always coaching me, always was there for me. And this one tournament for the national championships, he wasn't able to be there. Like, he had to go to work because it was like early in the days, and it just so happened that that's the way it fell. And when I showed up at that tournament, I remember showing up and meeting the O'Donohues. And the O'Donohues were a super cool family from Bay Village. And I was able to meet them, and Colin and their dad. And they had their little brother there, Ryan, who was there as a substitute for my weight class, just in case I didn't show, because they didn't know if the kid from South Lorain was actually going to show up to wrestle in the national championship. And luckily enough, I was able to. And so they kind of took me under their wing, and it was super cool that, we had so much fun with them. And I remember wrestling through that tournament, and it was Saturday night. We were matched up against the team from Indiana, and it was Team Ohio versus Team Indiana. And we did it like a dual style. So it was like all the weight classes would wrestle all the way up. And my weight class was soon to come up, and the one kid from Indiana gets up, and he, starts to undress and get in his singlet, and this dude is shredded. I mean, shredded. And I don't know if Vernon Cannon's still around, but it was a super cool name to even have. His name was Vernon Cannon, and this dude was shredded from head to toe. And I remember looking across and reading his name in my bracket and knowing that I was probably going to end up matching up against this. Well, I knew I was going to, because of the fact of the duel. And everybody's looking around. They're like, who's wrestling that guy? And I remember putting my hand up as I'm bouncing around, and I'm like, I am. And they're like, good luck. And I'm like, I'm not worried. He's going to need it. And they were like, okay. So I get ready to go out for the match. And I remember, walking out there, and everybody's like, holy smokes, here we go. So nobody had seen me out there at this, national championship. And Vernon Cannon, like I said, was muscle from head to toe. And nobody knew really who I was other than, the couple guys on my team who had just met me. So the match started. He came at me very aggressively, pushing and pushing and pushing. So I started to let him and his power lead the way. So what I did was I would just push on him, let him push back. And when he pushed back, I started to then throw this guy, and I would throw him back and forth and back and forth. And it was super funny to watch. I know that the people that were watching the match were just oohing and eyeing, like, like, because they were watching me just toss this big guy around. Boom, 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 boom. And before he knew it, the match was over. It was 20-5. And that was the match, and I remember walking away from that match, and everybody was like, holy smokes, what just happened? And it was a great time. I enjoyed it. It was super cool to do it with the O'Donohues, based on the fact that coming to meet them, and then them finding out that not only was I going to go to St. Ed's the following year, but Colin was making his way to St. Ed's as well. And so that was super cool to know that, we were both going to be making our way there. And so we were super excited for each other. I ended up making it through to the national championship match. I wrestled against a kid, and I don't remember his name. He was actually the Indiana runner-up to Vernon Cannon. And this kid had some kind of weird psoriasis or something on his arm. So they had his arms all taped up from his wrist to his elbows on both sides, which I thought was very weird, that he had tape like that. I had watched him a couple matches. He was very wild. Didn't think that it would be too much of a problem for me to get in there and kind of control the guy. When I matched up against him in the national championship, he, we started the match off, and he kind of came at me right away. I remember him grabbing me from the back of my head, boom, 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 and he headbutt me 3 times in a row. And it kind of caught me by surprise. I was like, whoa. And I remember taking a step back and being like, hold on a second, what just happened? And was kind of dazed a little bit, like, hold on, that dude just headbutt me 3 times. And next thing I know, he had shot in on me and was taking me down to my butt. And I was able to then get him off of me, push him back, and then I shot in. But I was still kind of dazed at this time. So then when I shot in, he used those taped up forearms to cross face me underneath and was kind of punching me with them at the same time, and was grinding me out, chopping my face up with this tape. And I remember popping back out, and before I knew it, I had taken down my singlet and was squared up to fight. Like, what's going on, dude? What are you doing? And the referee's like, blows the whistle. What are you doing? And I was like, dude, you don't see that? He headbutted me 3 times. He's sitting there cutting my face up. I mean, I was like bleeding at the time. I mean, my face had scratches all over it. Like I said, I was kind of caught by surprise of what was going on. The referee looked at me and he said, I don't know about that, but you took your singlet down, so you're disqualified. And that was the match. I had just lost the national championship. Like I said, I was kind of dazed, confused, didn't really know what was going on, was trying to protect myself, and made a mistake, stepped up, stood up, and, took down my singlet, squared up, and hadn't thrown any punches or anything. So it wasn't about that as a disqualification. But because of the fact that I had already taken my singlet down and started to disrobe, they disqualified me for that. So that was kind of tough. Super upset after that. I remember calling my dad from the payphone, because that was all we had at those times. Telling him to come pick me up. Like, I was done. The matches were over. I had lost. He didn't understand what had happened. But like I said, it was a difficult time, and it was tough. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm going to wrap it up with part 2A of the life of the business. 2B is going to then kind of dig into the start at St. Edwards, and some of the years then after that, because I made a run at St. Edwards for a year, and then I bounced around from Florida back to Lorain, back to Florida, back to Lorain, back and forth. And that'll be in part 2B. So that's kind of what I'm going to dig into in 2B. I hope that 2A kind of entertained you a little bit, kind of gave you a little bit more of an insight into me, the person. Like I said, that's all I kind of do this for, is to give you guys a little bit of insight into me and let you know the person that I am, as well as the many guests that I have on, because, I bring them on to shine a light on them and kind of let them tell their stories. And then I just chirp in and ask some questions to kind of lead the way of them telling their stories, so that you guys can get to know them as well, and kind of get to know the things that they've done. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm just, kind of spreading my story out into a long, like I said, I was trying to do a 4-part series, but part 2 has had to been breaking down into 2 separate parts kind of thing, 2A and 2B. So yeah, super excited that I was able to bring 2A to you guys. I will look to bring 2B to you next week. And then I've got a list of some guests that I want to have on in the future. So, I want to then get back on the roll of having some guests on after next week. And, got a good 5 shows lined up that I want to do for sure. And then I'll follow it up with who I'm going to have to follow. So, like I said, I hope you guys appreciated part 2A. I appreciate you guys coming out and checking me out and commenting and liking and just, viewing it. Check out, my Facebook as at Tony Gonzalez. Check out my YouTube as at The Business Let's Be Real. I don't have too many followers on there. That's kind of the start of where all the videos are at. I don't know if, you go to my Facebook page if they're all still available. Or on, you can always hit me up on Instagram as well. At the business, let's be real. I can answer, any kind of questions you guys want. Like I said, if you guys want to chat about some things, if you guys got some recommendations on some guests that you want me to have on the show and kind of tell their stories and talk about what it is that they're doing, their businesses that they have, and the lives that they lived, let me know that, because I'm definitely willing to do that. This is a show that I'm looking to continue for a long time. This is only episode 15, and there's going to be a lot more for us to go around. So with that being said, I want to go ahead and drop my quote of the night, and it's a pretty short quote, but I think it's got a lot of meaning. The quote is, "One day or day one. You have to decide whether you want it to be just another day or if you want this to be day one of the rest of your life. You guys decide." Thank you for checking me out again. The Life of the Business, Part 2A. Part 2B will be coming at you next week, next Sunday at 8 p.m. But for that, the business. Let's be real. Episode 15, over, out.